26 episodes of The Bad News Bears, 2 seasons, and CBS pulled the plug. The cast scattered. One landed on Star Trek, another emancipated himself from his own parents. 2 reunited on a daytime soap. 3 are dead. 1 walked away to teach high school history. Number 1 is the man whose name sat at the top of the call sheet. Jack Warden played Coach Morris Buttermaker, the bourbon-soaked former minor league pitcher reduced to cleaning swimming pools, the man a judge handed a choice between jail and coaching a team of misfit kids. He played the role with a bruised softness that worked, because Warden himself had been knocked around enough by life to recognize misfits when he saw them. The viewer watched a coach who never quite said he loved those kids, but always showed up. Warden was 58 years old at the premiere. By that point, he had already lived 3 or 4 lifetimes inside one body. Expelled from a Louisville high school at 17 for fighting, he fought 13 welterweight bouts as a professional boxer under the ring name Johnny Costello. After leaving the ring, he worked as a nightclub bouncer and a hotel lifeguard. The United States Navy sent him to the Yangtze River for 3 years. From there, he ran merchant marine convoys across the Atlantic, then joined the Army as a paratrooper with the 101st Airborne. 8 months before D-Day, Staff Sergeant Warden shattered his leg landing in a tree during a nighttime practice jump in England. Many of the men he trained with were killed in the Normandy invasion he missed. While he was flat on his back in a hospital bed with his leg in a cast, a fellow soldier handed him a Clifford Odets play. That was the moment he decided to become an actor. He recovered enough to fight in the Battle of the Bulge, came home, and studied acting on the GI Bill. By the time CBS hired him for The Bad News Bears, Warden had already received 2 Academy Award nominations, for Shampoo in 1975 and Heaven Can Wait in 1978, and won an Emmy for playing Chicago Bears coach George Halas in Brian's Song. He was the highest-paid principal on that television set by a margin so wide it embarrassed the math. The pay gap between Warden and any individual child in that dugout was an order of magnitude. In 1958, he married French actress Vanda Dupré. They had 1 son, Christopher. The marriage separated in the 1970s, but the 2 never bothered to divorce, a separation that lasted longer than most Hollywood marriages. Warden spent his final decades with his companion Marucha Hins. He retired from acting in 2000. His health declined steadily over the next 6 years. On July 19, 2006, he died at a hospital in New York City at the age of 85. His longtime business manager said it plainly. Everything gave out. Old age. Warden's body was cremated. The ashes went home to his family. Buttermaker was the man who pretended he did not care. The actor playing him had survived professional boxing, the Yangtze River, the Merchant Marine, the 101st Airborne, and a shattered leg 8 months before D-Day. And the only reason Jack Warden ever picked up a script in the first place was because a stranger in a hospital bed handed him one. The woman who played the only adult on that show with a working brain comes second. Catherine Hicks was 27 years old when CBS cast her as Dr. Emily Rappant, the junior high school principal trying to keep Buttermaker's coaching career inside the bounds of school district policy. She gave the character a tightly wound warmth, a woman doing everything by the book on a show where the book had been thrown into a swimming pool. Hicks had been in New York City only 2 weeks when she landed her first major role on the soap Ryan's Hope in 1976. She had been a cheerleader at a Phoenix Catholic high school, studied English literature at St. Mary's College, and earned her Master of Fine Arts at Cornell on a competitive theater fellowship. Within 2 years of her arrival in Manhattan, she was starring on Broadway opposite Jack Lemmon. The year after CBS canceled The Bears, ABC cast her as Marilyn Monroe in a $3.5 million production. She earned an Emmy nomination. 5 years later, she was William Shatner's love interest in Star Trek IV, the whale-obsessed marine biologist Dr. Gillian Taylor. 3 years after that, she played the mother fighting Chucky in Child's Play. And on the set of that movie about a murderous doll, she met the special effects artist who had designed and operated him. His name was Kevin Yeager. They married on May 19, 1990. Their daughter Caitlin was born in 1992. The marriage has lasted more than 35 years. In 1996, Hicks was cast as Annie Camden on a small WB family drama called Seventh Heaven. 11 seasons later, the show finished its run as the longest-running family drama in the history of American television. She played that minister's wife and mother of 7 for 197 hours of broadcast television. She is 74 years old as of May 2026 and turned 75 in August. She announced her retirement from acting in January of 2023 after a career spanning nearly 5 decades. Dr. Emily Rappant was the principal who could not control a junior high. Catherine Hicks ended up the television mother of the most-watched family drama of her generation and met her real-life husband on the set of a horror movie about a doll built to kill children. Third on the call sheet was a 12-year-old boy. Kristoff St. played Ahmad Abdul Rahim, the Hank Aaron worshipping kid who took every error personally. The boy who would strip his uniform off in shame after a bad inning. St. John gave the character a wounded earnestness no other child on that team had. The soft eyes, the cracked voice when Buttermaker benched him. His father had appeared in Shaft. His stepmother was a graduate of London's Royal Academy of Dramatic Art. He had played young Alex Haley in the ABC miniseries Roots, The Next Generations, the same year The Bad News Bears premiered. 12 years after CBS canceled the show, he was cast as Neil Winters on the CBS daytime soap The Young and the Restless. He stayed in that role for 28 years. He won 2 Daytime Emmy Awards. He won 10 NAACP Image Awards. No African-American actor in the history of the show appeared in more episodes than he did. He married boxing champion Mia St. John in 1991. Their son Julian was born December 5, 1989. Their daughter Paris Nicole came in 1992. They divorced in 1995. He married model Alana Nadal in 2001 and they had a daughter, Lola. They divorced in 2007. Each marriage left a child. Each child was loved. The story that broke him began with Julian. The boy was diagnosed with depression as a child and schizophrenia at 18. On November 23, 2014, Julian died at the La Casa Mental Health Rehabilitation Center in Long Beach. He was 24 years old. His funeral was held on the day he should have been celebrating his 25th birthday. St. John and his ex-wife later filed a wrongful death suit alleging the facility had falsified welfare check logs that staff had recorded checking on Julian after he was already dead. St. John never fully recovered. On the 3rd anniversary of his son's death, he attempted to take his own life and was placed on a 72-hour psychiatric hold. He kept working. In August of 2018, he got engaged to a Russian model named Ksenia Mikaleva. They were planning a wedding for the fall of 2019. He never made it. On February 3, 2019, a friend went to his home in Woodland Hills to check on him and found him unresponsive. The Los Angeles County coroner ruled the death accidental, hypertrophic heart disease with the effects of ethanol. He was 52 years old. His final episode of The Young and the Restless aired 3 days after his body was found. He is buried at Pierce Brothers Valley Oaks Memorial Park in Westlake Village. Ahmad was the boy who cared too much about a baseball game in 1979. Kristoff St. spent the last 4 years of his life carrying a grief no human being is built to carry, and the heart that broke him was the literal one in his chest. If you remember Kristoff St. from any season of The Young and the Restless, drop the year you started watching in the comments. Somebody out there saw every single one of his 28 years on that show. Number 4 belongs to the kid in the dugout with the loudest mouth. Meeno Peluce was 9 years old when he played Tanner Boyle, the foul-mouthed, perpetually fighting infielder who would punch a kid twice his size. Peluce played him with a chest-out fury that made the character pop off the screen. Small body, big voice, no fear. He was born in Amsterdam to American parents. The unusual stage name came from his half-sister, who as a toddler could not pronounce his real name Miro and said Meeno instead. That sister was a little girl named Soleil Moon Frye, who 4 years later would become Punky Brewster on NBC. After CBS canceled The Bears, NBC cast him as the time-traveling history prodigy Jeffrey Jones in Voyagers, opposite a 25-year-old model named John Eric Hexum. The show was scheduled directly opposite 60 Minutes, the #1 program in America at the time, and was canceled after 1 season. In October of 1984, Hicks died on the set of his next show after a firearm accident with a prop revolver loaded with blanks. He was 26 years old. Peluce was 14 and devastated. He attended UC Santa Cruz, studied American literature, and quietly walked away from acting. For most of the 1990s, he was a history teacher at Hollywood High School, the same subject his time-traveling television character had been a prodigy at. For the past 2 decades, he has worked as a professional photographer. He has shot album covers for major recording artists and national ad campaigns. His wife assists him on shoots. They have 2 daughters he calls his muses. Peluce is 56 years old as of May 2026. Tanner Boyle was the angriest 12-year-old in 1979 prime time. The man who played him became the quietest kind of artist. Someone behind a camera, raising daughters in private, leaving the lens for someone else to point. Halfway down the list comes the smallest kid on that team, and the most famous person in the room today. Corey Feldman was 7 years old at the show's premiere, a working professional with over 100 commercials behind him, before the words "Bad News Bears" appeared on his call sheet. His role on the show was small. He was Reggie Tower, a bear in a uniform. The story is what came after. Feldman's father had played bass for Strawberry Alarm Clock and co-written the song "I Want Candy." His mother had been a cocktail waitress and became his manager. Feldman has said in his 2013 memoir that his mother force-fed him diet pills and that her management of his career amounted to what he has called child slavery. She has denied his accusations. He started working at 3. After the Bears, the cameras kept rolling. Friday the 13th. The final chapter in 1984. Gremlins in 1984. The Goonies in 1985. Stand By Me in 1986, holding his own opposite River Phoenix in what is still considered one of the great child performances in American film. The Lost Boys in 1987, with Corey Haim. License to Drive in 1988. Dream a Little Dream in 1989. He was, by his mid-teens, one of the most popular teen pinups in the world. By age 15, his career earnings had crossed $1 million. He filed for emancipation. The judge ordered the bank records produced. $40,000 remained. The rest had been spent. To complete the legal emancipation, his father argued in court that he was owed $40,000 as a management fee, leaving Feldman, in his own words, completely on my own, not to mention flat broke. But at least I was finally free. The Coogan law that existed in 1979 when the Bad News Bears was filming required only that some portion of a child actor's earnings be set aside in trust at the discretion of a judge. The parent retained custodianship. The loophole was wide enough to drive a Mercedes through, which is what Feldman has said his father did with his money. California did not close the loophole until the year 2000, partly because of cases like his. He has described it as a turning point for Hollywood. Drew Barrymore later spoke up. Macaulay Culkin did as well. Feldman has publicly shared that he faced serious challenges during his childhood in the film industry. His close friend Corey Haim passed away in 2010 at the age of 38. Over the years, Feldman has been married 3 times and is the father of 1 son, Zen, who was born in 2010. As of May 2026, he is 54 years old. Reggie Tower was a minor role in a short-lived sitcom. The young actor who played him returned to a courtroom 8 years later, took legal action against his own parents, and played a part in changing child labor laws in the United States. If stories like these are what keep you watching, consider subscribing before the next entry. The next 3 are quieter, but they may leave a deeper impression. Number 6 played the villain. Philip R. Allen was 39 when he was cast as Roy Turner, the confident, win-at-all-costs coach of the rival Lions. Dressed in crisp white pants and holding a clipboard, he portrayed the kind of adult who took Little League far too seriously, often at the expense of the kids. Allen leaned fully into the character's harsh personality, making audiences root even more for Buttermaker's unlikely team. Before the Bad News Bears, Allen was a trained stage actor. He studied at the Neighborhood Playhouse in New York City and earned recognition for his performances in Edward Albee's The Zoo Story and Jason Miller's Pulitzer Prize-winning That Championship season. Later, he appeared in The Normal Heart, an early drama centered around the AIDS crisis, a subject many actors at the time avoided. 5 years after CBS canceled The Bears, he showed up on screen in a Starfleet uniform. He played Captain J.T. Esteban in Star Trek III: The Search for Spock, the cautious bureaucratic officer killed by Klingons in front of David Marcus on the Genesis planet. The role gave him a permanent seat at fan conventions for the next 40 years. Allen married Joan Snyder in 1974. They had one son, Keegan, born in 1989. The marriage lasted 38 years until Allen's death, described in his obituary as a soulmate partnership of 40 years. Keegan grew up to become Toby Kavanaugh on the ABC family series Pretty Little Liars from 2010 through 2017, a teen mystery that became one of the defining shows of an entire streaming generation. Allen died on March 1, 2012, in Los Angeles. He was 25 days short of his 73rd birthday. The cause of death and his burial location were not publicly disclosed. He died before Keegan's career hit its peak. Roy Turner was the small-time villain in Pressed White Slacks. The man who played him took the stage play nobody else would touch during the AIDS crisis, and his only son grew up to become the face of a teen mystery his father did not live to see end. The seventh name on the call sheet was the only girl on the team. Trisha Cast was 12 years old when she joined the show as Amanda Wurlitzer, the Bears' fastball pitcher, and the role originally played by Tatum O'Neal in the 1976 film. Amanda was the only girl in a dugout of boys, the only one with a real curveball, and the kid always trying to push her mother and Buttermaker back together. Cast played her with a guarded toughness that read older than 12. Bad News Bears was her first major job, handed to her at the same age as her character. After the show, she landed a recurring role opposite Jason Bateman on the NBC sitcom It's Your Move. In June of 1986, she was cast in what was supposed to be a short-term role on The Young and the Restless. The character was Nina Webster, a pregnant runaway teenager. The short-term arc lasted 15 years. She won the Daytime Emmy in 1992. 6 years after Cast joined the show, her old Bad News Bears co-star Kristoff St. John joined the cast as Neil Winters. Two children who had stood on a fictional baseball field in 1979 ended up working on the same daytime soundstage decades later, building parallel careers next to each other for over a decade. She married the show's composer Jack Warden in 1989 and divorced him in 2000. That same year, on July 20th, she married a Rochester musician and country songwriter named Bat McGrath. The two of them moved to a 30-acre wooded property in Tennessee with 3 dogs. She quilted. He wrote songs Kenny Rogers and Wynonna Judd recorded. In December of 2018, a routine colonoscopy showed McGrath had cancer. It had spread to his liver. Treatment would have given him 18 more months but ruined his quality of life. He refused treatment. He played a final concert in Rochester before a sellout crowd of 800 who stood and clapped before he had even strummed a chord. He died at home in Tennessee on October 1, 2019, with Cast at his bedside. He was 73. Cast is 59 years old as of May 2026. She still lives on the same property they bought together. She quilts. She has no social media presence. In November of 2025, she returned to The Young and the Restless for 2 episodes for a wedding storyline. Amanda Wurlitzer was a tomboy with a fastball in a 1979 sitcom. Trisha Cast spent 15 years on a daytime soap, fell in love with a man who wrote country songs, sat with him while he died on his own terms, and went home to a quilt and 3 dogs in a Tennessee forest where nobody asked for an autograph. Last on this list is the kid in the dugout with the binder. Sparky Marcus was 11 years old when he played Leslie Ogilvie, the Bears' bookish strategist, the kid memorizing baseball statistics, the small voice that always knew the right pitch even though he could not throw one himself. Marcus was already one of the busiest child actors in late 1970s television. He had played a child evangelist on Norman Lear's Mary Hartman, a character who was electrocuted to death in a bathtub. He had appeared in Disney's Freaky Friday with Jodie Foster. Once the Bad News Bears wrapped, Marcus moved into voice work. He was the title voice of the Hanna-Barbera animated Richie Rich from 1980 through 1982. He voiced characters on Shirt Tales, Challenge of the GoBots, Saturday Supercade, and a holiday special for Cabbage Patch Kids. His final on-camera role was a brief cameo as a bellboy in Steve Martin's The Man with Two Brains in 1983. He was 16. At 18, he quit. He walked away from the entire profession. He spent the next 30 years working as a physical therapist at a hospital in a small California town of about 7,000 people. He has since transitioned to running a tax preparation business. He married. His one son, Aiden, is 19 years old and is not in show business. When asked in recent interviews whether he still goes by Sparky, his answer is, "It depends who is asking." Marcus is 58 years old as of May 2026. Leslie Ogilvy was the brain in the dugout, the kid who would never make it as an athlete and knew it. The boy who played him grew up to be one of the busiest voices in American animation and chose to spend his adult life rehabilitating injured strangers in a small California town where nobody knew the kid who had once voiced Richie Rich. 8 people sat on a CBS soundstage in 1979. 3 are dead. 2 reunited on a soap. 1 walked away. The rest kept working. The show itself is barely remembered.